Yeah, and it's really interesting to see some of the factors that more traditionally you would see associated with permanent employees have become a big part of the contingent workforce cycle now. And I think the next evolution on from that is the engagement with suppliers. So where you've got a supply base that might be delivering under a statement of work rather than individuals delivering, time and materials, there is again that cultural alignment, a value-based alignment between suppliers and buyer organizations, and the ability to build those kind of longer term relationships. It seems to be broadening out because what a workforce is has changed, and the work capacity of an organization is reliant on partners of various different types now. But I feel like there's more unification around how that needs to operate, but seeing it spreading out to suppliers more now on the services procurement side, I think is almost like the latest iteration of that.
For sure. And I think for me, that's where the power of collaboration with procurement and the people team really comes into its own, because you're right, from an HR perspective, we've been engaging with our workforce in a certain way for a long time. We've been delivering value propositions to them in a certain way, and we've created a set of expectations and standards for our colleagues that actually we would want to do in the most legislatively an appropriate way with our second tier suppliers. So what we have started to do is certainly with my procurement team, we work on a really close-knit basis. We meet each other monthly. We create kind of supplier strategies. Anything that we're sharing with our colleagues, we would share with our suppliers, and vice versa, just to really make sure that our SOW suppliers and our MSP suppliers, if that was relevant, are as integrated into the organisation as our contractors and our colleagues are, because it's about them. They are our shop window as much as anything else. And if they understand our organisation, how we work, the things that are important to us, the likelihood is the delivery will be better when they come through the door.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all of these different channels are an incredibly important support network for the organisation. And so you can't look at them in isolation, but you need them there as a part of a wider picture. I think COVID's just made that really apparent. When you look at how supply chains have had to operate and just how things have had to change rapidly, it's like this crazy thing that's shaken everything up, but it brought some really important things to the surface, which definitely some of the things you just mentioned there would fall under that. And just this idea of this overall workforce optimization, you can't just rely on one thing, you need flexibility.
Absolutely. Things change all the time. There's always unexpected attrition that you don't imagine. There's unexpected talent shortages. So you need to look at it as a whole, and ensuring that your workforce strategy is as integrated and closely aligned to your business strategy is critical. I would be foolish to sit here and say that at the Co-op we've nailed it. We haven't. It's definitely a journey that we're on, but really understanding the things that matter, the work that needs to get done, how quickly it needs to get done, whether the skill and capability that we need is likely to be needed for the long term, or whether it's just a short-term fix, how much money we've got to be able to deliver that. If we're able to have those conversations up front as part of the strategic planning process, rather than being the function that process the orders at the end of it, they're in a much better position to be able to influence business decision. And our role, and the role of procurement, is to provide a set of facts and hypotheses around cost base and potential risk of engaging in a certain way, and it's very much down to the business to make the most appropriate choice. But that's the role that I see us playing when we start to optimize this workforce, by sharing the different mechanisms that they have available to them, and the pros and cons, or the lenses that they need to look through when they start to engage different worker types.
I totally agree with you. And I think it's just a very grown-up and pragmatic way to do business. A CEO, a wise CEO, once said to me, Johnny, all I want to know is what is the most effective use of my resources. As a business, I just need to know that. What have I got to lean on, and where should we be driving our effort? So I think that is a key question that the C-suite really need to understand, and ultimately it has to tie into strategy. So that was one of the things I was going to ask you, actually, was just in terms of tying workforce optimization back to strategy, but it's a cyclical thing, isn't it? Because the strategy has to be clear in the first place, so you need to know what you need to get done, and that has to be effectively communicated, which I think businesses are having to get better at that. But I'd say a lot of businesses are maybe still lacking in that, in the sense that business stakeholders, managers in particular areas, are they really 100% clear on what is required from them, from their particular business unit, and how that contributes to overall business strategy? It's not an easy thing to do, but it's a very important one.
Yeah, it's really not easy, and I'd love to speak to anybody that thinks they've got it sorted, because we definitely haven't. But I think as long as you're open and upfront and transparent about the fact that we've got an idea about where we want to get to, and an idea about how we might deliver that particular business strategy, then that's often enough. And if there's not an element of certainty about, I don't know, potentially creating a new skill set on a permanent basis, then actually that's where you could afford to utilize more of a flexible workforce to test and learn the approaches and the structures that you're potentially looking to put in. It's really hard. I have worked with businesses who are creating almost a set of prompts in there for their strategic teams to think about. So rather than them coming up with what the consumers need and what our customers need, it's about, well, what do our workers need from us, and what do we need from our workers to enable them to deliver that? So a simple set of questions that are far from perfect, that are answered through an Excel spreadsheet effectively, but at least it's a prompt there around workforce considerations and workforce implications that we are finding helpful. But to your point, Johnny, it's not static, it's cyclical, and like anything, context is everything. Who knew we would have a global pandemic on our hands that we needed to deal with? So the business strategy that we had set was completely flipped on its head. So we need to be much more agile and open to different routes of engaging lots of different types of workers, because it gives us that agility and ability to be able to change direction at any given point in time.
Yeah, it's probably a slightly cheesy metaphor, but I always compare business strategies to like sailing the Atlantic. Or rowing the Atlantic. Everyone's putting in effort, but if you all know where you're going, everyone's input is extremely valuable. If you're just getting in a boat and you're rowing, then people can start feeling disillusioned. What are we doing this for? Why am I'm doing more than that person? Or this isn't the best thing for me. Or what? If you know you're rowing the Atlantic, you're going from point A to point B, that is the objective, and you're all aligned on the objective. Everyone's opinion matters, everyone's input matters, and you can just get this cohesion. It's still a very difficult thing to do, but at least everyone knows where they're going. And if something crops up, I don't know, say a whale gets in the way, you have to change direction. Not really the best example of compared to a pandemic, but changes of direction, as long as they are communicated effectively as well, are still valid. It's still valid. And when you're looking at the workforce requirements, it might be that you're looking at, you could take the approach, some companies take the approach of looking at it from a worker-based perspective, and other people take an approach of looking at it from a work-based perspective. But ultimately, when you distill it down, it's what is the overall strategy of the business and what needs to be done to achieve that. And then I think you can break that out and say, okay, well, these things can be done in different ways. We've got this capacity over here. We've got this capacity over here. But you need to know what capacity you have in those different areas. And that does mean linking together all of the different time-based workforce channels together with the procurement of services from external outsourced providers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that for me, the most successful organizations at doing this are the ones that use a huge amount of reliable data for insight and foresight purposes. So it's really brilliant that we're starting to have workforce discussions with our strategy team about, well, okay, if that's the business strategy, what is it that we'll need people to do in order to help you deliver that? But I believe that both people and procurement have a role to play to inform that business strategy to a point as well. So actually, with all of the future world of work insights that are coming at us thick and fast, we need to start to inform business strategy rather than receiving it, because we don't want to set ourselves on a path that actually in 5 years' time is going to be completely outdated, because no longer a university is going to be developing in that specific skill set, for example. So I think it's equally important to have some really solid and structured data sets about the workforce that you have and where you've got potential gaps or areas of strength, but then how the external information could potentially impact the business strategy that we're creating. We're not there yet from a co-op perspective. We're on a journey, but I think for me, it's a two-way street. Aligning your business strategy and your workforce strategy, we have to look both internally and externally in order for it to be successful.